I went to the airport to send a friend off, and I was stunned to see my husband embracing his mistress in the departure lounge. I stepped nearer to them and overheard it all. "It's ready. That idiot is going to lose everything." I simply smiled because my heart was already heavy that day, but nothing could have prepared me for the gut-wrenching scene that unfolded before my eyes. I walked into an airport coffee shop, just trying to grab a bottle of water, and instead, I found my husband, Ethan, not on his supposed business trip to Chicago, but wrapped around another woman, plotting to steal my entire life and everything in it. And believe me, what I overheard him say next. It was so much worse than I could have ever imagined. The noise at John F. Kennedy International Airport was like a disturbed beehive, but the hum of it all just faded into the background. My best friend, Ashley, was finally boarding her delayed flight to Miami. "Go home to Noah," she'd insisted, pulling me into a tight hug. We'd see each other in a week. But honestly, I wasn't in any hurry. My home hadn't felt like a home in months. Ethan, my husband, a senior partner at his law firm, was always late, always finishing urgent cases. And when he was home, his mind was a million miles away. Even the news of my pregnancy hadn't sparked the joy I'd expected from him. Maybe he's just stressed, I told myself, a hand instinctively going to my barely noticeable bump. As a family physician, I was used to analyzing symptoms, but when it came to my own marriage, my professional intuition seemed to vanish. I decided to grab that water before heading out, and that's when my entire world crumbled. Tucked away in a corner, almost hidden by a pillar, sat Ethan, my husband, and he was embracing a young blonde woman in a flashy pink suit. They clung to each other like lovesick teenagers, not professional colleagues. I felt the floor drop out from under me. My pulse hammered in my ears, my mouth went bone dry. I quickly, desperately, stepped back behind the nearest pillar, praying they hadn't seen me. Ethan was whispering something to her, caressing her hand. She laughed, a high, tinkling sound, tilting her head. And then it hit me. Pamela, the paralegal from his office, the same 25-year-old Ethan, often mentioned in conversations. Pamela has a great idea to streamline documents. Pamela is brilliant. Pamela stays late to work overtime. Oh God, now it was agonizingly clear what they were really streamlining after work. A wave of nausea washed over me. This wasn't morning sickness. This was the crushing, gut-wrenching weight of utter betrayal. 5 years of marriage. One amazing son. Another child on the way, 12 weeks along. Did all of that mean so little to Ethan? Every fiber of my being screamed to march over there, make a scene, demand answers. But something stopped me. Maybe it was a survival instinct. Or perhaps my professional discipline kicking in, gather all the information before you act. So I moved. Slowly, silently, I hid behind other passengers, inching closer to my husband and his mistress, just close enough to hear their conversation. "Soon everything will be settled," Ethan was saying, stroking Pamela's cheek. "In court, we'll get everything down to the last dime. What if she suspects something?" Pamela's voice, now laced with worry, cut through the airport noise. Ethan scoffed dismissively. "Emily, she's too trusting. She's a doctor, not a lawyer. She doesn't understand the complexities of estate law. Besides," he sneered, "she's pregnant now. Emotionally unstable. Even if she understood something, who would believe her?" My teeth clenched so hard I thought they'd crack. Emotionally unstable? Oh, I would show him exactly what instability looked like. But what if she sees the documents? Pamela persisted, still uneasy. "The documents, the evidence, the will. It's all in my red folder, and that folder is in my office," Ethan said with such chilling confidence. "She has no access." He leaned in closer to Pamela. "After the hearing, we'll be millionaires. And your wife, your son, will get a divorce. I'll leave her enough so she doesn't starve. I'll take the boy. A boy needs his father." He paused, then gestured vaguely with his hand. "And the one on the way. We'll see. Maybe it won't even come to term with all the stress, you know." My blood rushed to my face, a searing heat of pure, unadulterated rage. This man, the father of my children, was calmly planning to not just leave me, but to rob me blind and steal my son. And my unborn child? He wished it away. "They're calling for boarding for the flight to Miami," Pamela said, standing up. It's time to go, honey. Miami, not Chicago. Another lie for his collection. Ethan kissed her, a long, passionate kiss. I hadn't received a kiss like that from him in over a year. In 1 week, he whispered, pulling away, we'll be free and rich. They walked towards the boarding gate. I watched them, feeling something inside me break. It wasn't my heart. That was already numb. What shattered were my illusions, my trust, my faith in family. But as the initial pain subsided, it was replaced by something else. A cold, calculating rage. Ethan had utterly underestimated his wife. Yes, I was a doctor, not a lawyer. But I was intelligent, observant, and I had an excellent memory. And above all, I had something Ethan completely lacked: a conscience and principles. The red folder in the office. The words echoed in my mind. I had a second key to his office at home. He'd given it to me for emergencies. It seemed the emergency had arrived. A faint, chilling smile touched my lips for the first time in half an hour. Ethan wanted to play a game. Fine. But he'd forgotten that in any game, there could only be one winner. And Emily Hayes had no intention of losing. I pulled out my phone and dialed Mrs. Davis, Noah's caregiver. Mrs. Davis, it's Emily. Could you watch Noah tonight? Something urgent has come up that I need to attend to. Yes, very urgent business. It was time to find out what that red folder contained. When I got home, 4-year-old Noah greeted me at the door, clutching a drawing. It was Mommy and Daddy, holding hands, with a little stick figure next to them. Mommy, look, he beamed. It's us, the family. I knelt and hugged him tightly. How would I ever explain to him that there was no family anymore? That his father had chosen another woman and was ready to take everything from us? It's beautiful, sweetie, I murmured, kissing his head. Where's Daddy? He asked, eyes wide. He said he'd bring me a toy from his business trip to faraway Miami. Faraway Miami, I thought bitterly. What would he bring back? Pamela? A ring for her? Or had he already given her a ticket to a new life? Mrs. Davis, the elderly caregiver who'd helped raise Noah since birth, looked at me carefully. Honey, you're very pale. Is something wrong? It's nothing. I'm just tired. I lied, forcing a smile. Mrs. Davis, I need to go to Ethan's office. It's urgent. Could you stay with Noah until tomorrow? Of course, dear. But what's so urgent it can't wait until he gets back? It really can't, Mrs. Davis. I gave Noah dinner, tucked him into bed, and read him a story about a good wizard who defeated evil witches. He fell asleep with a sweet smile on his face. If only everything were as easy as in fairy tales, I thought, my heart aching. At 10 o'clock that night, I got in my car and drove towards Park Avenue, where the law firm was located. Ethan had been a senior partner there for 3 years, a position that brought a high salary, immense prestige, and high-profile clients. All of it had given our family a comfortable life. Or so I thought. The firm occupied 2 floors of a modern skyscraper. Ethan's office was in a corner on the 2nd floor. Large windows, mahogany furniture, leather armchairs. Everything looked solid, inspired confidence. I parked my car on a quiet side street. The street was empty, save for an occasional passerby and the distant hum of traffic. The surrounding offices were dark. The workday had ended hours ago. I pulled out a small silver key with a keychain shaped like the scales of justice. I'd given it to Ethan on our first anniversary. Justice above all else, he'd said then. What a cruel irony. The door opened easily. There must have been employees working overtime, I thought, as I silently went up to the 2nd floor, careful that my heels didn't make a sound on the marble staircase. Ethan's office greeted me with the familiar scent of expensive cologne and leather. On his desk were neat piles of documents. In a corner, a safe. Along the wall, shelves crammed with binders. None of them looked like the red folder. I turned on the desk lamp and began my investigation. First, the desk drawers, standard paperwork, pens, stamps. In the bottom drawer, I found a USB drive labeled Personal. I took it. Might need it. Then, the filing cabinet. Files arranged alphabetically and by subject. Wills, deeds of sale, inheritance cases. Many binders, but none were read. Where could it be? I searched everywhere. Behind the expensive modern art painting, in the safe, under the rug. And then my gaze fell on a small cabinet in a dark corner of the office. I approached it. It was locked with a common padlock. Strange. Why lock a cabinet in your own office? I tried several keys from Ethan's keychain. The third one fit. The small cabinet door swung open, and stacked neatly on a shelf before my very eyes were several red folders. My heart pounded. There they were. The first folder was labeled Andrade M. The last name didn't ring a bell. I opened it and saw the will of an elderly woman leaving an apartment and a country house to... My God! I whispered aloud. Ethan Hayes. The second folder, Castro PN. A will with a large sum of money, again in favor of the same Ethan Hayes. The third folder, Jennings CS. This last name was familiar. Catherine. My great-aunt Catherine. My late mother's sister, who had passed away 6 months ago, childless alone. She planned to leave her inheritance to her only grandniece. Me. Opening the folder, I saw a will in which all of Catherine's properties, an apartment on the Upper East Side valued at $800,000, a house in the Berkshires, and her bank savings, passed to Ethan Hayes as a close family friend. You bastard, I whispered, the words choked with disbelief and fury. I had seen her original will. My aunt had shown it to me a month before she died. It was clearly written, I bequeath all my assets to my grandniece, Emily Hayes. Signature, date, notary seal, all in accordance with the law. And now in front of me was a fake. A very well-made fake. Ethan had used his position, his law degree, to replace the documents. I pulled out my phone and photographed every single page of that forged will. Then, I examined the rest of the folders. 7 in total. 7 forged wills, worth over $7 million. How long has he been doing this? Judging by the dates, the fraud had begun 3 years ago, right when Ethan was promoted and gained access to these wills. But it wasn't just fake wills. I found a second cell phone belonging to Ethan. I unlocked it using our son's birth date. Of course. Why else would he need a second phone on a vacation if he was with Pamela? The text messages between Ethan and Pamela were sickening. Honey, I settled another document today. Old man Morales didn't even realize he was signing a deed of gift in my favor instead of a will for his grandson. When he dies, a mansion in Greenwich will be ours. Love, you're a genius. Soon we can buy a villa in Italy and live there like royalty, and let your wife stay with her medicines and her patients. Ethan's reply, Pamela, we just have to close the last case. My wife's inheritance. That's where most of the money is. After that, we'll disappear. I'll file for divorce, take the boy, and we'll both go to Italy. I read the messages, a cold dread mixing with a boiling rage. They weren't just cheating on me, they were robbing defenseless elderly people. How many families had lost their inheritances because of their greed? I photographed every single message. Then, I opened Ethan's laptop. The password was the same as the phone's. Our son's birthday. A model father, I thought, a bitter smile twisting my lips. In his email, I found even more damning evidence. Diagrams of the fraud, lists of victims, money laundering plans. All perfectly organized and hidden. Arrogant fool, I muttered as I copied the files to the USB drive I'd found. Ethan was so sure of himself, he hadn't even bothered to encrypt the information. After the computer, I returned to the red folders. In one of them, a document made my blood run cold. A petition to strip me of my parental rights over Noah, based on the defendant's mental instability and her inability to provide adequate care for the minor. I read on. The document was dated for the next day. So that was the plan. First, get the inheritance with the fake will. Then, take Noah, claiming I wasn't mentally fit after losing all my money. And Pamela would step in, a new wife and mother in their new life. That was not going to happen. I returned all the folders to the cabinet and locked it. I had the evidence. I knew the enemy's plan. It was time to prepare the counterattack. I turned off the light, closed the office, and walked down to the first floor. Outside, a light drizzle was falling. I got in the car and picked up my phone. It was too late for business calls, but in the morning, the real battle would begin. Ethan expected an easy victory in court against his trusting, emotionally unstable wife. Instead, he would receive a lesson he would never forget. I caressed my belly. The baby was too small to move, but I already felt the connection. Forgive me, little one. I spoke mentally to my unborn child. Mommy will do everything to protect you and your brother, Noah. As I drove home, my plan was already forming. First, find a good lawyer. Then, contact the defrauded families. And of course, prepare a surprise for my dear husband upon his return. Ethan thought he was smarter than everyone, but that night he had lost the most important game of his life, and he didn't even know it. The next morning, I woke with a steely determination. The previous night had brought me not only proof of my husband's infidelity, but the full, horrifying scale of his crimes. I knew what I had to do. First, I took Noah to daycare. I spoke firmly with his teacher. Only I or Mrs. Davis could pick him up. Ethan was not to get near our son until everything was settled. Then, I went to my clinic and requested an immediate leave of absence for family matters. When I got home, I locked myself in my study and opened my laptop. Online, I found contact information for several renowned lawyers specializing in family and criminal law. The first number I dialed answered immediately. "Roth and Associates, good morning," a male voice said. "My name is Emily Hayes. I need an urgent consultation regarding fraud and document forgery. One moment, please. I'll connect you with Mr. Roth. He handles those cases himself." Konstantin Roth was a man in his 40s with a pleasant voice and an utterly professional demeanor. After hearing my brief, trembling summary, he agreed to meet me in 2 hours. "Bring all the documents and evidence you have," he advised. "If everything you're telling me is true, we could be looking at a very serious case." My next call was to a private investigator, Andrew Castle, recommended by a colleague. "I need a background check on 2 people," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. "Ethan Hayes, a senior partner at a law firm, and Pamela Serrano, 25 years old, his paralegal. I'm particularly interested in their financial situation, connections, and possible accomplices." "Understood," Castle replied. "The standard fee is $5,000 for a complete dossier on each. It will take us 3 days." "Agreed, but I need the results sooner. I'll pay extra for the urgency." After speaking with the detective, I tackled the most delicate, heartbreaking part of the plan, contacting the families Ethan had defrauded. In those red folders, I had seen the addresses and phone numbers of the deceased testator's relatives. The first call was to the grandson of Antonio Morales, the same elderly man Ethan had made sign a deed of gift instead of a will. "Hello, Max Morales?" "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Emily Hayes. I am the wife of the lawyer, Ethan Hayes, who handled your grandmother's documents." "Oh, yes, I remember. Why are you calling?" "Max," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "I have very bad news for you. Your grandmother was the victim of a fraud. Instead of a will in your favor, she signed a deed of gift to my husband." There was a long, stunned silence. "What? What are you saying?" "But my grandmother wanted to leave me the house." "Exactly. And I am willing to help you get justice. I have proof." The conversation lasted half an hour. Max was in shock, but he agreed to meet and discuss the details. I gave him my contact information and promised to call him in the next few days. The rest of the calls followed a similar, agonizing pattern. The daughter of Vladimir Castro, the nephew of Maria Andrade, the son of George Pacheco. They all believed their relatives had died without leaving an inheritance, but in reality, a cunning lawyer had stolen it. By noon, I had a complete database of victims. The total estimated damage exceeded $20 million. Ethan and Pamela had set up a veritable criminal organization. At 1 o'clock, I arrived at Mr. Roth's office. Konstantin was a tall, pleasant-looking man. His office had a classic design, dark furniture, leather-bound books, portraits of famous jurists. "Well, Emily, let's see what you've brought me," he said, gesturing to the chair opposite his desk. I laid out the printouts of the photos from the red folders, the copies of Ethan's emails, and the list of victims. Roth studied the documents in silence, occasionally raising an eyebrow or nodding slowly. "The scale of this is astonishing," he said finally, looking up at me. "Your husband has created an entire system for stealing inheritances, and he's acted with incredible skill, professionally forging documents." "What will happen to me?" I asked, my voice small. "I'm the wife of a con man. If you are not part of the system, nothing. In fact, you are a victim. Your husband planned to strip you of your inheritance and take your son. Plus, there are the emotional damages for the infidelity." He paused, his gaze softening. "And what will happen to him with this evidence?" Grand larceny, forgery of a public document, abuse of power, at least 10 years in prison, maybe more. A strange, cold satisfaction washed over me. Justice. It would be served. What do I need to do? First, file a complaint with the NYPD. I will help you draft it correctly. Second, gather all the victims and organize a class action lawsuit with the district attorney's office. Third, file for divorce and request full custody of your son. And what if Ethan tries to flee? He's abroad right now. We will issue an international arrest warrant. With this evidence, he will not get very far. We talked for another hour, discussing the details of the strategy. Roth agreed to represent me and all the victim families. The fees were substantial, but I knew the result would be worth it. Leaving the lawyer's office, I felt a sense of immense relief. The plan was in motion. I had allies, and the evidence was gathered. All that was left was to wait for my husband's return and put an end to this nightmare. On my way home, I stopped by the bank and checked our joint accounts. As I expected, large sums of money had been withdrawn. Ethan was preparing to flee, but in my personal account, opened before I got married, was the money I had saved over years of working as a doctor. It was enough for the lawyer and expenses for the next few months. At home, I made myself chamomile tea and sat down to analyze the information. Detective Castle had already sent me preliminary data on Pamela Serrano. He discovered that the woman was married to Victor Serrano, a construction engineer. They lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of Queens. They had debts, a modest income. Victor had no idea about his wife's activities. Another deceived spouse, I thought. How would he react to the news of his wife's infidelity and criminal activities? I looked up Victor Serrano's profile on social media. An ordinary 30-year-old man. Photos at work. Family photos with Pamela. In the latest ones, from a month ago, they looked like a happy couple. Pamela was hugging her husband, smiling at the camera. And a month later, she was planning to run away with her lover. I sent Victor a private message. Good afternoon. I am Emily Hayes. I need to talk to you about your wife, Pamela. It's a matter concerning your family. Could we meet tonight? The reply came in half an hour. What happened? Pamela is on a business trip. She's not back for a week. That is precisely what we need to talk about. It seems not everything is as you believe. Victor agreed to meet at a coffee shop near his home at 7 that evening. I picked up Noah from daycare, gave him dinner, and left him with Mrs. Davis. The boy asked when Daddy would be back, and I vaguely replied, soon. The coffee shop was a small, cozy place with checkered tablecloths and the smell of freshly baked pastries. Victor Serrano was already sitting at a table in the corner, nervously looking at his watch. He was of average height, with a kind face and worried eyes. Emily Hayes. He stood up when he saw me. Yes, that's me. Thank you for agreeing to meet. We ordered coffee and I got straight to the point. Victor, what I'm about to tell you may come as a shock, but you have the right to know the truth. Did something happen to Pamela? He asked, his voice tight. In a way, yes. Your wife is cheating on you with my husband, and together, they are involved in a large-scale fraud scheme. Victor's face turned ashen. That's impossible. Pamela wouldn't be capable of that. Yes, she is. I took out the printouts of the text messages between Ethan and Pamela and the photos I had taken at the airport the day before. Victor read in silence, his left eyelid twitching uncontrollably. Since when? He asked, his voice weak. According to the messages, for a year, maybe more. And the fraud? They are stealing inheritances from elderly people. Pamela helps Ethan forge wills. In 3 years, they have stolen over $20 million. Victor pushed the papers away, rubbing his face with his hands. My God, I thought we were fine. She said she was working overtime for our future. We were planning how to buy a bigger apartment, go on vacation. Victor, I interrupted gently. They were planning to disappear. They only had one last job left, to steal my inheritance. Then they planned to resign and move to Italy. And me. Our marriage. Pamela was going to file for divorce. In the messages, she refers to you as a burden she had to get rid of. Victor clenched his fists. In his kind eyes, anger and pain finally appeared. 3 years of marriage. I was crazy about her. I worked 2 jobs to support us. And she. He couldn't finish the sentence. Victor, I understand how painful this is for you. It is for me too. but we have an opportunity to get justice. What do you suggest? We join forces. I have already spoken with a lawyer. I have contacted the victim families. Tomorrow, I will file a complaint with the NYPD. You can be a witness to the infidelity and Pamela's involvement in the fraud. And what will happen then? Ethan faces a minimum of 10 years in prison. Pamela will lose her job, her reputation, and possibly go to jail as well. All the stolen money will be returned to its rightful heirs, and we can have our marriages annulled under favorable conditions. Victor was silent for a long time, weighing the offer. You know, he said finally, looking up, his eyes hard, I consider myself a good person. I don't wish harm on anyone, not even my enemies. But what Pamela did is a betrayal, not just to me, but to all those elderly people they robbed. So you agree to help? Yes, I do. We talked for another hour, discussing the details of the plan. Victor was not only a decent person, but also practical. He agreed to monitor Pamela upon her return, record their conversations, and gather more evidence. By the way, he said before leaving, I have copies of all of Pamela's documents. Passport, criminal record, tax returns. When we applied for the loan for the apartment, the bank asked for everything. Maybe it will be useful. I'm sure it will. Thank you, Victor. Thank you. If it weren't for you, I'd still be living a lie, completely clueless. And Pamela, along with your husband, would still be stealing. We exchanged numbers and agreed to stay in touch. I had one more ally in the fight against the traitors. At home, a surprise awaited me. Detective Castle sent me a detailed report on the financial status of Ethan and Pamela. He discovered that in 3 years they had purchased several properties in the names of straw men. A condo in Marbella, a house in the mountains, a plot of land in a subdivision outside the city, all purchased with stolen money. In addition, the detective uncovered accounts in tax havens in Cyprus and Switzerland. The total amount of savings exceeded $7 million. Ethan and Pamela were preparing for a life of luxury abroad, but they would not get it. I promised myself. I went to bed late, but I slept soundly. Tomorrow, the most important day would begin. Ethan and Pamela would return from their business trip and discover that their plans had utterly fallen apart. And Emily Hayes, from a victim, had become a hunter. The next day, I woke up with the feeling that my life would change completely. The sun was shining outside, a good sign. I had breakfast with Noah, took him to daycare, and then headed to the central NYPD precinct. Inspector Williams, the officer on duty, listened to my story attentively. When I placed the folder of evidence on the table, his eyes widened. Grand larceny, he muttered, reviewing the documents. This is enough for a whole organization. They're returning from abroad soon. If we don't act, they could escape. Understood. I'll pass the case to Detective Vargas, he shouted down the hall. Maria, a woman in her mid-40s, dressed in a formal suit, entered the office. Detective Vargas looked like a person who did not mess around. What do we have? She asked, sitting down. Williams summarized the situation. Vargas took the documents and began to study them with professional interest. Good work, she said after 10 minutes, looking at me. Emily, where did you get such detailed material? I accidentally discovered my husband's plans and decided to do my own investigation. Breaking into someone else's office is a crime. I used the key my husband gave me personally, and I didn't steal any documents. I only photographed them. Vargas nodded. Technically, you're right. Besides, the public benefit of your action is clear. We will open a case and the arrest. As soon as your husband sets foot in the country, we will arrest him. We have sufficient grounds. I signed the complaint and gave a detailed statement. The process took 3 hours. Leaving the police station, I felt a quiet strength. The law was on my side. The next stop was Mr. Roth's office. Constantine already had the documents prepared to file in court. Divorce petition, request for full custody of the child, division of assets, he listed, plus compensation for emotional damages of $500,000. Isn't that too much? I asked, surprised. No. Considering the infidelity, the attempt to strip you of your inheritance, and take your son, it's even a little. But the courts are conservative. They rarely award such large sums. So, at least we have a basis. We discussed the strategy for the case. Roth was optimistic. With such evidence, the outcome is practically guaranteed. At 3 in the afternoon, I met with the representatives of the victim families. Max Morales came with his mother, an elderly woman who could barely hold back her tears. My mother-in-law wanted to leave the house to her grandson, she said, her voice trembling. She worked her whole life saving every penny, and that scoundrel stole it all. Vladimir Castro's daughter, Soledad, was more determined. I want that lawyer to rot in jail. My father left me an apartment and savings for my children's education. Because of Hayes, my children might not be able to finish their studies. In total, 7 families gathered. The total damage amounted to nearly $20 million. Roth explained the process of filing a class action lawsuit and assured them of the return of the stolen assets. When Hayes is arrested, we will freeze his assets, the lawyer said. Apartments, country houses, bank accounts, cars, everything will go towards paying compensation to the victims. In the evening, I received a message from Victor. Pamela told me she's coming back tomorrow morning. I'm ready for the conversation. Good luck, I replied. Remember, record everything. At 10 at night, Detective Castle called. Emily, I have news. Your husband and his mistress landed at JFK an hour ago. They're in a taxi right now. Thank you. So, the most exciting part starts tomorrow. I went to bed early but had trouble falling asleep. Tomorrow, Ethan would discover that his plans had failed. How would he react? Would he try to flee, feign ignorance, or surrender immediately? At 6:30 in the morning, a call woke me. Ethan's number appeared on the screen. Hello, I answered calmly. Emily, it's me. I've landed. My husband's voice was normal, with no trace of guilt or worry. How was the trip? Did you like Chicago? Yes, everything was fine. Hey, today I have to go to court for your aunt's inheritance case. Remember I told you about it? Yes, I remember. And what will happen? It's just formalities. The will is in order, but there's a small detail to correct. There will be no problems. I smiled to myself. Even now, he was still lying. Ethan, can I ask you something? Of course. How is Pamela? Did she have a business trip, too? The silence that followed was too long for such a simple question. Pamela? Oh, yes, she's fine. Why? For no reason. You mention her a lot lately. She's a good employee. That's all. Well, I have to get ready. See you tonight. Of course, dear. I hung up and smiled. Ethan didn't yet know that his case today would turn into a monumental disaster. Detective Vargas had promised me yesterday that he would be arrested upon arrival at the courthouse. At 8 in the morning, I took Noah to daycare and headed to the courthouse. I wanted to see with my own eyes how the world of the man who had planned to destroy my life would crumble. The courthouse building greeted me with its usual hustle and bustle. Lawyers, plaintiffs, defendants, witnesses, all rushing from one place to another. I found the courtroom where the case of Catherine Jennings's inheritance would be heard. At 9:30, Ethan arrived. He was wearing his best suit, carrying a briefcase with documents. He looked confident and calm. Beside him walked Pamela in a discreet black dress. Her demeanor was professional, but I noticed how Ethan discreetly brushed his assistant's hand. We'll get the last million and be free, I heard him murmur. Yes, free of money, of work, of reputation, I replied in my mind. At 10 in the morning, the hearing didn't begin. The judge, Judge Elena Macarena, had already been informed that a criminal about to flee the country would be in the courtroom and that he should be arrested immediately. Ethan sat with Pamela inside the courtroom. I also entered, accompanied by Mr. Roth. Ethan saw me and turned utterly pale. Emily, what are you doing here? Defending my rights, dear. The right to Aunt Catherine's inheritance, which you plan to steal. What are you talking about? What proof? Proof that you forged the will, and also of your systematic fraud. That's absurd. Ethan stood up. I'm a lawyer with an impeccable reputation. Impeccable. Until yesterday, I said calmly. At that moment, 2 people in plain clothes entered the courtroom. Detective Vargas and an officer. Ethan saw them and stepped back. Ethan Hayes, Vargas said, her voice clear and authoritative. You are under arrest for the crimes of grand larceny and forgery of a public document. You have the right to remain silent. What? You're mistaken. Pamela jumped up from her seat, but the second officer was already approaching her. Pamela Serrano, you are under arrest as an accomplice in the crime. I didn't do anything, she shrieked. It was his idea. We'll discuss that at the station, the officer replied indifferently. They put handcuffs on Ethan. He turned to me, his eyes wide with shock and incomprehension. Emily, what's happening? It's a mistake, right? There's no mistake, Ethan. You wanted to rob me and take my son, but you miscalculated. It turns out I'm not the foolish, credulous wife you thought I was. But we're a family, he pleaded. The family ended when you decided to cheat on me with Pamela. And especially when you started robbing defenseless, elderly people. They took Ethan and Pamela out of the courtroom. Pamela was crying hysterically. Ethan walked in silence, his head bowed, utterly defeated. The judge postponed the hearing until the circumstances were clarified. Congratulations, Roth said, shaking my hand firmly. The first blow was a direct hit. Thank you. But this is just the beginning. There's a lot of work ahead. Leaving the courthouse, I felt a strange, quiet peace. Revenge is a dish best served cold. And today, Ethan had tasted the first, chilling bite. The arrest of Ethan and Pamela was just the beginning of a cascade of revelations. I returned home in high spirits, but I knew the hardest part was still to come. At noon, Victor Serrano called. His voice sounded tired and utterly confused. Emily, Pamela hasn't come home. I'm worried. Victor, sit down. What I'm about to tell you is going to hurt. I told him what had happened at the courthouse. Victor listened in silence, sighing heavily from time to time. So, they arrested her? Yes, she's in a detention center right now, along with my almost ex-husband. Ex-husband? I filed for divorce this morning. After what he has done, we have no future. And what will happen to Pamela? It depends on many things. If she cooperates with the investigation, testifies against Ethan, she might get a suspended sentence. If she remains stubborn, she faces several years as an accomplice in a fraud of this magnitude. 3 to 7 years in prison. Victor was silent for a long time. You know, he said finally, his voice barely a whisper. I thought I would feel sorry for her, but I don't. She not only cheated on me, but on all the people they robbed. He sounded resolute. Let the law deal with her. Victor, the detective will want to talk to you. Your testimony is important for the case. Of course, I'm willing to help. In the afternoon, I picked up Noah from daycare. The boy asked where Daddy was, and I answered him as honestly as I could, choosing my words carefully. Daddy did something wrong, sweetie. Now he has to answer for it. And will he come back? Not soon. Maybe he'll never come back. Now it will just be you and me. I hugged him tightly. You, me, and everything will be okay. Noah nodded, like a little 4-year-old philosopher. Mommy, you won't leave me, right? Never, my love. Mommy will never leave you. The next day, the real work began. Detective Vargas summoned me for a detailed statement that lasted 4 hours. At the end, Vargas looked at me, her expression grim. Emily, thanks to you, we have uncovered a huge fraudulent scheme. It turns out there are more victims than we thought. How many? I asked, my stomach churning. For now, 12 families. The total damage exceeds $35 million. I was astonished. My husband's crime was even greater than I had imagined. And the accomplices besides Pamela Serrano? We have identified 2 more. The real estate appraiser, Andrew Cabrera, and the real estate agent, Tatiana Navarro. They helped manage the transactions with the stolen properties. Will they be arrested too? We already arrested them last night. After the interrogation, I went straight to see my lawyer. Roth greeted me with good news. The court has accepted your divorce petition for processing. Given the circumstances, the process will be quick. And the custody of the child? Ethan will lose his parental rights due to his arrest and the criminal case. Noah will stay with you. He continued. And the properties? All of Ethan's assets are frozen. Apartments, country houses, bank accounts, cars. Everything will go towards paying compensation to the victims. You will get half of the marital property not related to the crime. That is, the apartment where you live now. In addition, monetary compensation for your share in other properties and your aunt's inheritance. He beamed. The fake will has been declared null and void. You will get everything that is yours. The apartment on the Upper East Side, the house in the mountains, the bank deposits. I calculated mentally. Including the inheritance, I would become a wealthy woman with more than enough for a comfortable life. By the way, Roth said, and just then, I felt a sharp pang in my lower abdomen. In the last few days, with all the stress, I had almost forgotten about my pregnancy. Constantine, excuse me, I have to go. I don't feel well. Of course, take care of yourself. On the way home, the pain intensified. I stopped at a pharmacy, but suddenly I felt dizzy, and everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed, surrounded by doctors and nurses. And there, I learned the devastating news. I had lost the baby. The pregnancy had terminated. I cried, a deep, aching grief I hadn't allowed myself to feel. When I finally calmed down, I called Mrs. Davis and asked her to pick up Noah and take him to her house, explaining what had happened. I spent 3 days in the hospital. Entering my house again, still aching, I knew I had to move on. I had Noah, who needed a happy, healthy, and loving mother. An hour later, Mrs. Davis brought my son. I hugged him tight, deciding not to tell him for now that his little brother was no longer in Mommy's belly. In the evening, Detective Castle called. Emily, I have news about your husband's financial dealings. I'm listening. We have found 3 more accounts in tax havens. The total sum of stolen money exceeds $45 million. Ethan prepared his escape thoroughly. Can that money be recovered? We are in contact with international agencies. The process is complex, but there is a chance. The next day, I received an unexpected call. It was Pamela Serrano from the detention center. Emily, it's Pamela. They gave me one call. I'm listening. I want to tell everything. Testify against Ethan. But I have one condition. What is it? Meet with me. There are things you need to know about what Ethan planned to do to you and your son. It's much worse than you think. I agreed to meet. Curiosity and a cold dread overcame my aversion. The detention center was a grim building. The visiting room, bare walls, a table, 2 chairs, bars on the window. Pamela looked terrible. Her hair was messy, her clothes wrinkled, her eyes red from crying. There was no trace of the self-assured young woman I'd seen at the airport. Thank you for coming, she said in a weak voice. I'm listening. I want you to know I never wanted to hurt you. Ethan told me you hadn't loved each other for a long time, and that the divorce was inevitable. And you believed him. I was in love, blind and stupid. He promised he would marry me, that we would buy a house in Italy. Children. I'm pregnant. Emily, with Ethan's child. I found out last week. A fresh pang, sharp and sudden, went through my heart. He was going to have a child with his mistress, while my own baby hadn't survived. Why do you think it's Ethan's? My husband and I were careful because I was going to leave him for yours. And what else did you want to tell me about Ethan's plans? He didn't just plan to divorce you. He planned. Pamela hesitated, her eyes wide with fear. What did he? To kill you after you gave birth. To make it look like an accident or postpartum depression. My blood ran ice cold. Are you kidding me? No. He has contacts in the criminal world. People who know how to eliminate obstacles. Ethan said it was simpler. No need to divide assets in the divorce. And you kept quiet? I thought he wasn't serious, that they were just words. And when did you realize he was serious? When he showed me pictures of those people. He told me how they worked. Then I got scared, but it was too late. I was his accomplice. I was in shock. So, he not only planned to rob me, but to kill me? I had been miraculously saved by discovering his plans at the airport. Pamela, do you have proof? Text messages with those people. Ethan thought he had deleted them all, but I took screenshots. I saved them on a USB drive. Where is the drive? At my house. In a box on my dresser. A small pink one. Why are you telling me this? Because I realized that Ethan is a monster. He used me just like he used you and everyone else. And when he no longer needed me, he would have discarded me too. And your husband, Victor? Victor is a good man. I was an idiot to betray him. Now I want to at least redeem part of my guilt. What do you want in return? Tell Victor I'm sorry, and let him know the truth about the child. After the meeting with Pamela, I went straight to Detective Vargas. The new information radically changed the entire case. A contract killing. Vargas asked, her face grim. Are you sure? Pamela is willing to testify and has evidence. Then this isn't just fraud. It's an organized crime group. We need to conduct an additional operation. Vargas immediately organized a search of Pamela's apartment. Victor let them in and showed them where the USB drive was. There, Indeed, they found the text messages from Ethan with two individuals, Miguel Moreno and Dennis Castano, men with criminal records. "We need to solve the problem with the wife radically," Ethan had written. "After she gives birth, she is depressed. A suicide would not be surprising." "Understood. The payment?" Moreno had replied, $200,000, half up front, half after. "Agreed." I read the messages, feeling a chilling terror. They were not only cheating on me, but they planned to eliminate me from the world with the same coldness a normal person plans a vacation. "We need to arrest Moreno and Castano," Vargas said, her jaw tight. "Do you have any information on them?" "No, but I can ask Detective Castle. He has contacts in the underworld." Castle responded quickly. In 2 hours, he sent a dossier on the two suspects. Miguel Moreno, a hitman with 2 murder convictions. Dennis Castano, his partner and expert in simulating accidents. "Professionals," Vargas muttered. "If their plan had succeeded, you wouldn't have suspected anything. And in a few months, you would have been the victim of an accident." In the evening, I met with Victor. He looked sad, but firm. "Did Pamela send you any message?" he asked. "She asks for your forgiveness, and she wants you to know she's pregnant." Victor turned pale. "With his child?" "Yes. According to her, you too were careful. With him, she was not, and now Pamela realizes that Ethan just used her. She regrets it. And what will happen to the child? That is her decision. But if she has it, she will raise it alone. Ethan will be in prison for a long time. And I cannot forgive her after all this." "That is your right, Victor. No one will judge you." Victor also wanted to start a new life, free of lies and betrayals. He had also filed for divorce. The next day, Moreno and Castano were arrested. In the search, weapons, false documents, and messages from other clients were found. It turned out that Ethan was just one of the group's many clients. "This is turning into a federal case," Vargas said. "They will probably transfer it to the main office." "And what will happen to Ethan?" "Attempted murder will be added to the fraud charge. Now he's not facing 10 years, but much more." I felt a strange satisfaction. Justice had completely triumphed. Ethan would get what he deserved for all his crimes. A week after the arrest of Moreno and Castano, the investigation escalated to another level. I received a summons from the investigator, but it wasn't Vargas's office that awaited me. It was a large conference room. At a long table sat several people in suits. In the center, a man in his 50s with medals on his uniform. "Emily, let me introduce you to Colonel Samuel Black, head of the Organized Crime Unit," Vargas said. "Please have a seat." "What we are about to discuss now," Black said, his voice calm but authoritative, "must remain in the strictest confidence. We have some questions for you." "Go ahead. I'm listening." "Thanks to you, we have uncovered a large criminal network, but we have reason to believe that your husband is not the leader, but just an enforcer." "You mean he has a boss?" "Someone who provides him with information about potential victims, organizes the sale of stolen properties, and gives him protection." My brow furrowed. In Ethan's messages, no boss was mentioned. "And where does this information come from?" Pamela Serrano has given an additional statement. It turns out that Ethan met regularly with a certain Uncle Nick. He gave him a share of the profits and received instructions for new targets. "And who is this Uncle Nick?" "We don't know yet. Ethan refuses to talk, but we have some leads." Black took out a folder with photos. "Security cameras captured your husband meeting with an older man near a restaurant on the Upper East Side. The last meeting was 2 days before his trip to Miami. In the photos, I saw Ethan with a gray-haired man wearing an expensive coat. The man's face was turned away, but his general figure was visible." "Does this face look familiar to you?" "No, I've never seen him." "And the voice, has Ethan ever spoken on the phone in front of you with someone he called Uncle Nick?" I tried to remember. In recent months, Ethan often spoke on the phone, going into another room, but I didn't remember hearing that name. "I don't recall such a conversation." "Understood." Then another question. Ethan had access to the Notary Public's database, but the information about private clients, their income, properties, came from somewhere else. Where exactly? Judging by the thefts, he had a source in the IRS or the banking system. Someone was passing him data on wealthy elderly people. I pondered this. It was true. How did Ethan know the marital status of the clients, their heirs, the size of their savings. Could Uncle Nick be that source? It's very likely. That's why we need your help. But for that, Ethan has to contact him himself. And why would he do that? If we promise him a reduced sentence in exchange for his cooperation, or— Black paused, a glint in his eye— if he thinks he can escape. How? You mean you'll break him out of jail? Of course. Under our control. Ethan will try to contact his boss, ask for help. We will catch the contact and get to Uncle Nick. And the risk? Minimal. Ethan will be under constant surveillance. At the first real escape attempt, he will be arrested again. I thought about it. The plan was risky, but tempting. Capturing the entire criminal network would mean protecting other potential victims. Agreed. What do I have to do? Visit your husband in jail. Tell him you are willing to forgive him and help him. Maybe he will share information about his boss. But I have filed for divorce. Tell him you've changed your mind. That love is stronger than resentment. The important thing is that you convince him of your sincerity. I agreed. The next day, I went to the detention center where Ethan was being held. My ex-husband looked terrible, unshaven, thin, in a prison uniform. There was nothing left of his former arrogance. Emily, I can't believe it. You came, he said, his voice hoarse. Yes, I came. I sat down across from him. How is Noah? And the baby? Forgive me. I was a fool. Pamela tricked me. The money blinded me. They are fine, I lied. I've been thinking a lot about us, about our family. And what conclusion did you come to? That I don't want to destroy our family because of your mistakes. Yes, you were wrong, but we can fix everything. Ethan's eyes lit up with a desperate hope. Are you willing to forgive me? I am. On one condition. Tell them the whole truth about your accomplices, about who helped you, gave you information. Maybe the investigation will be lenient and reduce your sentence. Ethan hesitated. Emily, it's complicated. There are people. It's better not to bother. What kind of people? Influential, connected to the government. If I talk, not only will I suffer. Ethan, you're facing life in prison. There can be nothing worse. Yes, there is. People like me don't last long in prison, especially if they find out I've ratted out the wrong people. Who are you talking about? Ethan looked around, making sure the guard wasn't listening. Uncle Nick. Nicholas Ortega, Deputy Commissioner of the IRS. He runs the whole operation. I struggled not to show my surprise. So, a high-ranking government official was involved. What exactly does he do? He provides information on wealthy taxpayers, lists of properties, data on heirs, marital status. And he also provides protection. If any relative suspects, he buries the case. In exchange for what? Half of the profits. Ortega takes the largest share, but he also runs the greatest risk. And now he probably wants to get rid of me. I know too much about his connections, his foreign accounts, his shell companies. Ethan, what if the investigation guarantees your safety? What safety? Ortega has connections in the DA's office, in the courts, in the prison. He will get to me anywhere. I realized I had obtained crucial information. Now I just had to use it correctly. And what if you escape? Escape to where? I'm in a detention center. Anything can happen. A transfer to court, a medical checkup. Even if you escape, where would you go? Without money, without documents. To see Uncle Nick? He'll help you if you're useful to him. Ortega would only help me hide if I am useful to him. And now I am a risk and a burden to him. But if you offer him something valuable, like what? For example, information about the investigation, what they know and what they don't. Ethan thought about it. You know, maybe you're right. If I tell Ortega how the investigation is going, warn him of the danger, maybe he'll help me flee the country. Try to contact him from here. All calls are monitored. Through a lawyer, or by passing a note to a cellmate. Emily, are you sure you're on my side? You're not working for the investigation. I pretended to be hurt. Ethan, I am your wife, the mother of your children. Of course, I will always be on your side. Sorry, he mumbled. I think I'm going crazy in these walls. I understand. The important thing is that we find a way to get you out of here. Ethan believed in my sincerity and promised to try to contact Ortega. I left with a sense of victory. In the car, I immediately called Colonel Black. Samuel, I have a name. Nicholas Ortega, Deputy Commissioner of the IRS. Ortega. Wow. We have long suspected his corruption, but we had no proof. Now we will. Ethan is willing to contact him. Excellent. Let's start the operation. The operation to capture Ortega was called Operation Vengeance. Colonel Black personally supervised every stage. I had been a crucial part of the chain, but my active participation ended there. From now on, it's too dangerous, Black explained to me. Ortega is a serious adversary. He has connections, money, power. If he finds out you're working for us, he might try to eliminate you. But I want to see the end of this case. You have already done the most important thing. You have led us to the boss. The rest is for professionals. I agreed to stay on the sidelines, but asked to be kept informed. Black promised to give me regular updates. 3 days later, Ethan's escape was staged. During a transfer to the courthouse, the prisoner transport van had an accident. In the chaos, Ethan escaped. In reality, he was released under the control of the agents. Ethan ran and borrowed a cell phone from a startled student, pretending to call an ambulance for an old man who had fallen on the corner. From memory, he dialed Ortega's number. The agents followed him from a distance. "Nicholas, it's Ethan. Are you crazy calling me directly?" Ortega's voice was sharp. "I have no choice. I've escaped, but they'll find me soon. I need help." "What help?" "You're burned." "Documents. Money. A way out of the country. I have information about the investigation." "What information?" "They know about you. They're looking for a certain Uncle Nick. They're about to locate you." There was a long, tense silence. "Where are you now?" "In the city with a borrowed phone. Then hide in the basement of an abandoned building. Vasquez Street, number 15. Back basement. Wait there. In an hour, someone will come for you." The call was cut off. Ethan returned the phone to the surprised student and headed to the indicated location, followed by the agents. An hour later, a black Audi with tinted windows arrived at the building. 2 men in leather jackets got out and entered the basement. "Ethan!" one of them shouted. "I'm here," Ethan replied from the darkness. "Let's go. The boss is waiting for you." They put Ethan in the car and took him away. 3 teams followed them, alternating cars and motorcycles. They couldn't lose the target. The Audi stopped near a luxury restaurant, the Monarch on the Gold Coast. They took Ethan through the back entrance to a private office on the 2nd floor. Behind a large desk sat Nicholas Ortega, a man in his 60s with gray hair and a cold, calculating gaze. Beside him, 2 intimidating bodyguards. Well, Ethan," Ortega said with irritation, "what a mess you've made." "Nicholas, it's not my fault. My wife turned out to be smarter than I thought. Your wife is a minor problem. The problem is that you got caught, and that means you're dragging us all down. But I haven't said anything. I've been quiet as a tomb. For now, you're quiet. But what will happen when you face life in prison? You will sing like a canary. I will keep quiet. I promise." Ortega smiled dismissively. "Ethan, you have disappointed me. I invested a lot in you. I gave you the chance to make millions, and you have ruined everything for a woman. Give me a chance to fix it. Help me get out of the country. I will disappear forever. Abroad? Do you take me for a fool? In a month, you would rat me out to foreign special services in exchange for asylum. No, I am not a traitor. Everyone is a traitor, Ethan. When life is at stake, everyone betrays. You know, I have a more radical idea." "What is it?" "You die today, in an escape attempt. The dead do not testify." Ethan turned absolutely pale. "Nicholas, you can't do that." "I can and I will." "Alejandro Victor," he said to his bodyguards. "Take him to the woods. Let him be breakfast for the wild dogs." The bodyguards approached Ethan. He backed away, trembling. "Wait! I have information," he stammered. "What information?" "About the investigation. They are planning an operation against you. They know about your accounts." "How do you know?" "My wife told me. She is collaborating with the investigation." Ortega turned sharply, his eyes narrowing to slits. "What did you say? Your wife works for the police?" "Yes. She has found out about your plans. They plan to arrest you tomorrow." "You're lying." "No. Check it if you want." At that exact moment, the office door burst open. Agents in bulletproof vests poured in. "Hands up!" Ortega tried to draw a weapon, but he was quickly subdued. His bodyguards did not resist. They knew they were finished. Nicholas Ortega, You are under arrest for organizing a criminal group, corruption, and involvement in fraud. Colonel Black himself put the handcuffs on Ortega. Ortega looked at Ethan with pure, venomous hatred. In the end, you betrayed me. You bastard. First, I didn't want to. Ethan shouted back. You will rot in jail, rat. The game is over, Nicholas, Black said, his voice calm and firm. We know about your foreign accounts, your shell companies, your bribes. There's enough for several life sentences. The arrest of Ortega was a bombshell. A corrupt official, the mastermind of a criminal scheme that had stolen over $1 billion from the state. Cases like this made the front pages of the newspapers. I saw the news on television, Ethan and Ortega in handcuffs, images of the raids, comments from experts. Justice had triumphed. In the evening, Colonel Black called me. The operation was a success. Thanks to you, we have dismantled the largest corruption scheme in recent years. And what happened to the other accomplices? All arrested. Ortega, his people at the IRS, the real estate agents, the appraisers, the entire network has been dismantled. How many years are they facing? Many. The court will decide. And the damages? All assets are frozen. The victim families will receive full compensation. A week later, the hearing for the divorce of Emily and Ethan was held. The process took half an hour. Given the circumstances, the court saw no reason to maintain the marriage. Leaving the courthouse, I felt light, unburdened. A dark, terrifying chapter of my life had ended. Ahead, a new beginning. Victor Serrano had also divorced. Pamela signed all the documents without resistance. She was sentenced to 3 years, thanks to her cooperation with the investigation. She decided to have a child. 6 months passed since Ethan's arrest. My life changed completely. I received my aunt's inheritance, sold the apartment, and bought a large house in a subdivision outside of New York. A quiet place with a big garden where Noah, now 5, could play. I worked in a small private clinic. Good income, flexible hours. I had enough time for my son. Noah adapted quickly to the new life. Children, in general, adapt easily to changes. He went to a new daycare, made friends with the neighborhood children. He no longer asked about his biological father. Mommy, will I get a new daddy? He asked once during dinner. I don't know, sweetie. Would you like that? I want one who is good and does not hurt us. If we get a new daddy, I assure you he will be good. I wasn't lying. After everything that had happened, I had become very cautious with men. Trust had to be earned. Victor Serrano became a frequent visitor to my home. At first, he came for work-related matters, helping with repairs, fixing things. Then the visits became more frequent and less professional. Victor turned out to be a wonderful man. Honest, reliable, hardworking. And he immediately got along with Noah. The boy was drawn to him, sensing his sincerity and kindness. Uncle Victor, can you be my daddy? Noah asked one afternoon. Victor blushed. He looked at me, a question in his eyes. That's not for me to decide, Noah. The grown-ups decide that. But I want you to be my daddy. You are good. In the evening, when Noah was asleep, Victor and I talked in the kitchen over coffee. Emily, I have to tell you something, he began hesitantly. I'm listening. I love coming here. I love being with you and with Noah. I feel at home. I like your company, too. I have. He stopped, his gaze earnest. Victor, just say it. I'm in love with you. I know it might sound strange. We've both been through a betrayal, but I think we can overcome it. I was silent, weighing his words. I liked Victor, too. But after Ethan, I was terrified to open my heart again. Victor, I need time to think. Of course. I'm in no hurry. I just wanted you to know how I feel. We saw each other for 3 more months before I agreed to a serious relationship. Victor was patient, understanding what I had been through, never pressuring me. Our wedding was simple, with only close friends. Mr. Roth also attended, who over time had become not just a lawyer, but a true friend. Emily, you are incredibly brave, he said in a toast. Few women are capable of fighting so masterfully for justice. You are an inspiration. Colonel Black sent a telegram. I wish you all the happiness. Your courage uncovered a huge criminal scheme. You are a true hero. In the evening, the newlyweds were alone. Noah was sleeping soundly. Victor and I sat on the terrace, looking at the stars. Are you happy? I asked him, a wistful smile on my face. What, for having joined your life with a woman with a past like mine? Emily, your past is what shows what a strong person you are. You didn't break. You didn't become bitter. You didn't give up. On the contrary, you fought until the end. There are very few women like that. And you're not afraid that I'll discover something again? I joked, a playful glint in my eye. I'm terrified, Victor replied seriously, then grinned. That's why I will always be honest with you. It would hurt me more to deceive you than anything else. We laughed. In the year we had known each other, Victor had never given me a reason to doubt him. He was an open book, with no secrets, no double lives. The trial of Ethan, Ortega, and their accomplices was widely covered by the media. They called it the case of a century, a monumental victory for justice. I attended all the sessions as a victim and witness. It was painful to see Ethan again, but it was necessary. That story had to be put to rest. Ethan looked terrible. He had lost weight, gone gray. His eyes had lost their sparkle. There was nothing left of the arrogant lawyer. In his testimony, he tried to justify himself several times. I didn't want to hurt my wife. I was confused. I was influenced. Influenced by whom? The prosecutor pressed. By Ortega. He forced me to join the scheme. He threatened me. And the attempted murder of your wife. Did he force you to do that, too? We have text messages with the hitmen. You paid a down payment of $100,000. Ethan was silent. There was no point in justifying himself. The evidence was overwhelming. Ortega was more dignified. He didn't justify himself, didn't blame anyone. He remained silent or answered in monosyllables. Do you admit your guilt? The judge asked. Partially. In what, exactly? In corruption. The rest, let the court decide. The trial lasted 3 months. During that time, dozens of witnesses were questioned. Hundreds of documents were reviewed. The sentence was harsh. Nicholas Ortega was sentenced to life in prison. Ethan Hayes to 31 years in prison. Pamela to 3 years. Leaving the courthouse, I felt a profound relief. Finally, the story was over. Ethan would no longer cheat, steal, or betray. Outside, Victor was waiting for me with Noah. How did it go? Victor asked, hugging me close. It's over. He got 31 years. That's a long time. It's fair. For such a crime and a murder plot, it should be more. And how do you feel? I thought about it. What did I really feel? Joy. Satisfaction. Pity for my ex-husband. Peace, I finally replied. Justice has been served. Now we can move on. In the evening, at home, we celebrated the end of the trial. A simple family celebration. We toasted with a glass of red wine to our new life. In just over a year, everything had changed. From being a cheated wife, I had become a happily married woman. From a victim to someone who helped bring justice. From a person who was almost robbed and killed, to someone who found peace and built a new, honest life. 5 years passed since Ethan's arrest. My life had settled down completely. I continued to work. My reputation as a doctor was impeccable. Patients appreciated my professionalism and humanity. Our family also grew. 3 years ago, Victor and I had a daughter, Anna. She became the center of our universe. Noah adored his little sister and helped us take care of her. Now we have a big family, Victor said one evening, watching the children at the table. Just like I always dreamed. I was happy, truly happy. After all the trials, I value the warmth of home, loyalty, the simple happiness of motherhood even more. Ethan was serving his sentence in a maximum security prison. In 5 years, he never wrote, called, or tried to see his son. Noah had almost forgotten his biological father. To him, his father was Victor. Where is my real daddy? The boy asked one morning. He lives very far away, I replied. He did something bad, and now he's paying for it. And will he come back? Not soon. And even if he comes back, we won't have contact with him. Why? Because he hurt our family, and you have to stay away from people who hurt you. Noah nodded, like a little philosopher. Children understand more than adults think. Pamela served her sentence and moved to another city. According to rumors, she got married. I was no longer interested in her fate. That chapter was closed. Ortega received an additional sentence for trying to bribe the prison administration. The victim families received full compensation. Many of them remained friends with me, grateful for my help. On my birthday, Max Morales came with his wife, Soledad Castro with her children. They had become not just acquaintances, but true friends. "You saved our family," Max's mother said, her eyes moist. "If it weren't for you, we would have lost the house our grandmother left us." "I was just defending myself," I replied humbly, "and helping others was something that came up along the way." Mr. Roth was also a frequent visitor. We were united not only by a professional friendship, but a personal one. "Emily, you changed my life," he confessed once. "Working on your case showed me that law can be not just a business, but a service to justice." "And what has changed for you?" "Now I take cases not only from wealthy clients. I help simple people who have been victims of scammers." "That's wonderful. It means our story has brought something good not just to our family." From time to time, Colonel Black called me, asking about the family. "How are you, Emily?" he would ask. "Very well, Samuel. We live quietly, raising the children. And no crime stories. No more. Thank God. Once was enough. It's a shame. You would make a great detective." "Thank you. But I prefer to heal people than to catch criminals." On the 5th anniversary of Ethan's arrest, our family went to our country house. We spent weekends and holidays there. By the river, we received guests, organized family parties. "Mommy, tell me the story of the bad uncle," Anna, who was already 3, asked, sitting on my lap. "What bad uncle?" "The one who wanted to take our house." The children knew a general version of a story, without frightening details, adapted for them. "Once upon a time, there was a bad uncle who cheated people," I began. "He stole their houses and their money, and he also wanted to steal our house." "And what did Mommy do?" Noah chimed in, already knowing the next part. "Mommy found out his plans and told the police, and the police caught the bad uncle and put him in jail." "And he will not get out?" Anna asked, her eyes wide. "Not soon. And when he gets out, we'll live somewhere else. And Daddy Victor will still be with us." "Of course, sweetie. Daddy Victor will always be with us." Anna, satisfied, ran to play with her brother. I followed her with my gaze, thinking about how much life had changed. 5 years ago, I was the unhappy wife of a con man, ignorant of my husband's double life. Now, a happy mother of 2, a successful doctor, the beloved wife of a good man. Victor came over, hugged me, and sat down beside me. We were silent, holding hands, each thinking our own thoughts. In 5 years, we had learned to value the simple joys: family dinners, the children's laughter, late-night conversations, plans for the future. Somewhere, Ethan was serving his sentence, thinking about how stupidly he had lost everything. Pamela was raising a child in another city, trying to forget the past. Ortega was spending his last days in a cold cell. And I had built a new life on the ruins of the old one, without lies, without betrayals, without fear. With love, trust, and a fierce faith in justice. Family secrets. That's what the story could be called. But the secrets were revealed, and the family found a new happiness. Honest, deserved, and built on the solid foundation of truth. This journey taught me so much about betrayal, strength, and finding justice. I'm curious, what would you have done if you discovered your partner was capable of something so horrific? Have any of you ever faced a similar moment where your entire world turned upside down? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to hear your stories.